Hey guys, Levi with Trident Fly Fishing, and today we're going to be tying a pheasant tail nymph. It's a good nymph for imitating mayflies, slim-bodied mayflies like beetus, sulfurs, and it was created by Frank Sawyer in the year 1958, so it's been catching fish for a while. So we're going to start with an Ahrex FW 561 hook, and a size 12. You can tie this fly down to like 20, 22s, and up to 10s, 8s even. So go ahead and lay a thread base down. For thread, we're using 8/0 unithread in the color tan. So once you have a base on there, we're gonna get ready to tie in some pheasant tail fibers. And these come right from a male pheasant tail. We're gonna grab about, let's do 4 or 5. The thing is, this nymph is there to imitate mayfly nymphs. And most of them, actually none of them have more than 3 tails. So I don't like to have a whole lot of fibers in there just because it's unnatural looking. So we don't need a whole lot more than that. If you tie 4 in, chances are the fish aren't going to count it, but it also, if you lose one, it's there. So measure your tail against the length of your hook shank. We're going to want it to be right about the length of the shank. And just tie that in right on top of the hook. A pin trap helps. And get it tied in. And then I'll go ahead and run the tail up the whole shank of the hook just to build a little underbody here. This is a size 12 hook, so we can get away with it being a little thicker than just the diameter of the hook shank and a little bit of thread. So once you get that tied down, we're gonna get copper wire in there. So we're gonna use to rib this and create a nice durable body. So go ahead and tie that in right at the thorax and wrap it on back to the tail. And you wanna try to keep the underbody here as clean as possible, because then you'll have a smooth body whenever we go to wrap these pheasant tail fibers in. If it's smooth on the underbody, then the overbody tends to follow suit a little better. So now we're gonna grab some more pheasant tail fibers, and that's gonna be the body of this fly. For this, we'll use about 7, 8 maybe. And we're gonna go ahead and grab them by the tips, even if they're not even already, but thankfully mine are. And just go ahead and tie those in. Now you can actually snip it ends to even them, and tie them in right at the thorax. And again, if you tie them in at the thorax and wrap your thread all the way to the tail, it just creates a nice smooth underbody. So get those tied in and advance your thread right up to about where the eye is. And now we're gonna wrap this pheasant tail, these pheasant tail fibers, up the abdomen to create, or up the shank to create the abdomen of this fly. And you want these wraps to be touching one another, nice and successive. And you'll notice that it has a good segmented look, and the colors are nice and earthy. They look pretty well like a mayfly nymph. You'll also notice that as I wrap these fibers, I use my left hand to just kind of hold them down so they don't unwind. They're usually pretty small fibers, and if you let them unwind, you're gonna have to at least rewrap them again, possibly retie them in, so it's a pain in the butt. So once you get to about the 65% mark, go ahead and tie those in and snip off the excess. And now we're gonna get this wire ribbed right up the body. Just nice, evenly spaced wraps to tie everything together and add durability. Also gives a little bit of flash. So get that wrapped up to the thorax and then tie it off. And usually you can just get in there and twist this back and forth, and it pops right off. That way you don't have to use your scissors and dull them. So for the wing case, we're gonna use pheasant tail fibers as well. And again, realism can be important with these flies, with any nymph really, or any fly for that matter. And pretty much all mayfly nymphs have 6 legs, 3 on each side. So I go ahead and just grab 6 fibers. It makes it easy for me in the end because it's always consistent, only 6. All right, so we're good to go. And this will we'll be tying our wing case and the legs with this. And we're gonna measure this right about the shank of the length of the hook shank plus 1 additional eye length. So you can just eyeball that, and it's no big deal if it's a little bit off. You can trim these fibers for the legs. So tie those in. We want them to all be laying nice and flat because that's going to create our wing case. And I'll wrap these down too behind the eye and then snip them. So we're going to grab 2 peacock herl fibers for the thorax. 2 should be fine. Smaller fly, you probably can only use 1 right behind the hook eye and wrap them to where they meet the pheasant tail that you tied in for your wings. And then once you have that tied in, go ahead and make sure you have a nice thread base laid down so that everything ends up being smooth. And then we're going to start winding this peacock herl to create the thorax. So go ahead and wrap that forward. See you have a nice pronounced thorax from it. And get these wraps just close to one another, side by side. And once you get just behind the eye, go ahead and tie them off. Tie the peacock off. And now's the time in the fly where just throw a half hitch in there to secure this, because if you miss that and then your thread goes loose or something happens, you may end up having to rewind that peacock herl. And all of these materials here can be found at tridentflyfishing.com. So if you want to tie some pheasant tails and get ready for the spring hatches, whether they're olives or sulfurs or anything like that, we have everything you need there. And orders over $49, always ship for free. So that's nice and easy. So now that we have our peacock tied in, we're gonna pull the pheasant tail fibers, over the peacock to create a wing case like this. So go ahead and pull those over and hit them with a wrap of thread. Make sure they're straight on the shank. And now we want to grab 3 fibers for each side. This way we have 3 legs evenly on each side of the fly. And I'll start by sweeping the left side back. Actually, I missed one. But I'll start by sweeping the left side back, hitting it with 2 wraps of thread, and then doing the exact same on the right side. And you can situate them downward a little bit, but you'll see how they lay nice, and you just gotta set the legs nice and easily. And if you need to trim those, it's not gonna be the end of the world, but if you measure it out each time, get a nice natural look to it. And if you guys have a way to tie this fly that's different from what we did today, go ahead and drop that in the comments, because even though this is an old pattern, it's nice to see how things change over time. So now that you've swept your legs back, go ahead and hit it with a whip finish right behind the hook eye. All right, and that's a pheasant tail nymph. I want to thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next time.